At first, there was nothing. But then Neil Escuri walked by and said,
"Let there be light."
It actually became dark, but Neil was like, it's something. Then Neil said,
"Let there be a city."
And the city randomly appeared. And it was called Bayview. Hello gentlemen of the internet, it is the Most Wanted here, and today I'm going to show you the way Need for Speed Underground 2's areas and races were developed in a chronological order. Now at first you might be wondering what all these numbers are about, so let me just explain how I've even managed to link these together. You see, we have this race trainer, which allows us to hop into any race we'd like using the ID code that comes with every single race or event ever made in the game. And now take note of these minimap files and the numbers after them. Those numbers represent the race event IDs that we have access to. Now if you go on and sort all these numbers into an order and find out which race each of them represent, we can clearly see a chronological link in the order of the way these races have been created. We are going to name the points where the game's development greatly advanced builds, and we're going to start off with build 4000 when the basic version of Bayview City was created. Build 4000. When Bayview was created, the first thing the developers started out with were the basic circuit races all over Bayview. All the circuit races developed around this time are playable in the final game, so you're not missing out on any scrapped events here. They started with the City Core events at first, then move on to Beacon Hill, then Cole Harbour, Jackson Heights, and the events that go through multiple areas, and at last, another wave of extra fill-in races. Around build 4090, a now totally scrapped game mode was in progress. It was called the Duo Game Mode, and it supposedly would have been a race type where you're faced against only one racer. A rather simple concept, yet it became completely scrapped, as hacking ourselves into the races with these IDs simply starts us in a random location around Bayview, with the AI opposition doing absolutely nothing but being stuck at the start line, indicating that the race code and the AI nodes are completely erased from the final release. Build 4100. Sprint races started appearing with the events first in City Core and Beacon Hill, then in Cole Harbour, then up in Jackson Heights, then the extra events that appear in several areas at once. 4 events, Marathon, Terminal Corner, Roller Coaster, and Partridge Run were scrapped from the final release. It's still possible to access these events, but they all appear to be reversed versions of other sprint events, so basically you still get to play these races, as in the final version you can play events backwards too. Later around this time, at build 4170 was the time when Jackson Heights drift events started appearing. All 6 of the events made it into the final release, and the drift events were basically dealt with for a while. Build 4200. Bayview didn't seem well fitting for drag races. I mean, look at all these curvy roads, it would be extremely unfitting for such a game mode. So the developers went on and created an additional game area for drag races located in a previously unknown section of Bayview. The game never explains where these actually are located and basically tries to make you believe that they're just slapped into Bayview somewhere, but I shall explain the concept in another video in the future. Around this time, the Bayview Bridge Race, the Airport Runway Drag Races, and the Train Track Races were built up from scratch, along with a scrapped race called Sorting, which is basically Airport Freeway backwards. It presumably was scrapped because it was a curved track not well fitting with the concept of drag racing. Build 4300. The game lacked variation in drift races, so a new parkade area located in the inaccessible areas of Bayview, along with the stadium area, were implemented. All the events from this development point appear in the final release of the game, and no more drift races were added from this point on. Build 4400. The game lacked variation in drag races, so the developers decided to make a copy-paste of Bayview City, where the road's so-called assist nodes are more optimized for drag racing. They also did some mapping and opened the previously closed down tunnel area running on the city core, basically granting them another drag race location to implement, which led to the appearance of two drag races called Tunnel Construction and Northern Freeway. There also was an additional drag race called Road to Airport, a reversed version of Northern Freeway, which just so happens to have been taken out of the full release. Build 4500. This was the point in development where the creators decided to bring Need for Speed Underground 2 to the next level, and they implemented the concept of freely roaming Bayview City the way you can in career mode and in free roam mode. This quite possibly was when the customization shops started appearing too, as it's clearly noticeable that almost all of the customization shops are more like extra add-on buildings rather than places that were in the game since they began the development of Bayview City's streets. Build 4600. Someone in Black Box was like, there aren't enough races in the game, so let's let the players race around in the drift areas too, because, you know, why not? So Street X was born. Street X uses the industrial drift track from Need for Speed Underground 1 and the parquet drift track from the earlier development stages of Underground 2 and lets you and a bunch of AI cars battle your way to victory on these fast-paced tracks. All races made around this stage of development made it into the final game, and no more Street X races were made after this point. Build 4700. Around this time in development, the URL races began appearing. At first they created the GP track located in the unknown part of Bayview, where the GP track URL races, the dyno test, the drag race test, and the drift race test takes part. There also was a scrapped dual race here, much like the one scrapped from Build 4090. What happened to it is basically unknown, and when trying to hack ourselves into the race, the game just crashes without an error message. Later on around this build, the second wave of URL races got implemented, reusing the airport runway area from the drag races from an earlier build, which became the airport circuit URL races towards the end. After Build 4700, nothing else made it into the final release of the game. However, developers attempted to create two additional URL race areas, even though the deadline to release Underground 2 was rather close. The unfinished speedway track spotted around Build 4800 is basically a road geometry of a speedway location, much like how a NASCAR track looks like. It also has areas in the middle indicating that the races in this location would also appear with general variety the same way the GP track is implemented. As you can clearly see, this area didn't even get finished by the time the game got released, so it got scrapped altogether. And at last, at Build 4900, we're given a flat area surrounded by mountains with invisible walls all around blocking the player and keeping the car in the playable area. Not much is known about what was supposed to be made here, but it quite possibly is not more than a placeholder for a location that the creators never even started working on. And then, Need for Speed Underground 2 got released. Thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and if you'd like to see more content like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I shall get back to you in the next video. I'll see you around, mates.